Let's talk about the upfronts, Daniel. Those are usually held, I guess, in May in New York. Back in the days of broadcast primacy and then cable, that's where you sold most of the ads you were going to sell for the year if the various networks would put on a dog and pony show and get the big advertisers, the big national advertisers to sell. It's still a thing, but it ain't the thing it used to be. But now streaming matters.
The underrated Dallas Cowboys quarterback Dak Prescott says, "Here we go." Just want to do that. Yeah, I mean, finally, the advertising commitments for streaming match the allocation of viewership. They, according to Media Dynamics Incorporated, which measures upfront commitments across broadcast.
Because it never did, right? It's like it's always trailed. Like broadcast over-indexed when cable was rising. Now streaming's been rising for what, 8 years?
Look at the very process they still use to sell the advertising. Up to 70% of advertising commitments, national advertising commitments for American television, still come in this upfront market that unfolds over the early summer. And it's tied to an ancient ritual of the broadcast fall season, which used to be all, this is prime time we're talking about, by the way. That used to be it. I mean, it's always the season now. With streaming, it doesn't really have a seasonal calendar in the way traditional television did.
Like stuff just rolls out. It could roll out in the summer. It could roll out in early March. They could time it out to have the new season of a highly regarded show come out just in time for Emmy voting, right? That's the kind of stuff that happens.
Well, what's interesting was cable took the biggest haircut. I mean, it lost live sports to streaming for the most part. A lot of NBA basketball left cable and went to streaming last year. And that showed up. I think cable was down twice as much as it was the year before. Broadcasting, linear television has been down every year for the last 4 years in the upfronts, but cable took it on the chin big time last year, even more so than broadcast. All told, I think there was $33 billion spent or committed to by American advertisers for primetime television. It's a record.
32 billion? 32 billion?
Billion, Dave. So that's more than ever. But while more impressions were ever, CPMs, cost per 1,000, 30-second impressions, I should say, they were sold at a lower rate. That's because while basically cost per impressions were down across everything, even streaming, but there's just more of them sold. So higher net revenue, but at the same time, cost for impressions are down. For streaming, that's because folks weighed big, pricey, premium SVOD purchases against bargain fast purchases, fast to sort of bringing the market down. You can economically buy a lot of stuff. May not be efficient, but it's cheap and through.
Right, it's dirt cheap, but there's just a whole big bucket, right? Of
you're bound to reach
opportunities. You're going to reach something. We'll find out. I moderate a panel today for OTC.X, a little trade group for the more niche streamers. I like to think of it. Lovely organization. Love doing work for them, doing little panels and stuff for them. And we had a guy from Ampere Analysis, and kind of the place in between the subscription video services and the FAST services is the ad-supported tiers of the subscription services. And he had a little slide he put up. It's in our newsletter today, nexttmt.com. You can get it for free twice a week in your mailbox. Can't beat it. But it shows ad-supported tiers are continuing to grow in popularity, even for folks who are paying, but they're getting it at a cheaper price. You get the ads instead. Amazon took it off people. It didn't give people a choice. Really, like, we're going to turn everybody into ad-supported.
Right.
And I thought it was interesting. They turned everybody into ad-supported back in 2023. 2.5 years later, 14% of people are paying to opt out. They're paying a little bit more.
I'm among them. I don't have a choice. My wife just won't watch ads.
She won't watch ads, right?
Or do it.
But I find that interesting. 14%, 86% now, who kind of got it stuck in their face. And there's others like, I'm not going to pay, was it $3 more a month or whatever? I don't care. I don't watch it that much unless it's sports and it's going to have ads anyway. But HBO Max, premium TV, that's what it's known for. It's got a lot of stuff on there, obviously. But even HBO Max, more than half of its users now are paying for an ad-supported tier
And
instead
count me
of the
among
full
that
dose.
one. That's the one that I was able to get past the Texas judge, because we got a heck of a deal on their ad-supported tier. I think we're paying through promotion like $2 a month. But I will throw some sunlight to David Zaslav and crew. The way they handle their ad pods is really, I find it pretty humane and very manageable. Even the wife doesn't complain that much about it.
Mm.
Kudos.
That's a little shocking that anything could be called that by Mr. Zaslav. But that being said, I just find it fascinating because that is the content, Game of Thrones or Sopranos or, all the long list of Casey Bloys's genius stuff that's been coming out for years now. You don't want, toilet bowl ads or whatever, toilet bowl cleaner ads or whatever popping in on you. But obviously, I think some of this is about affordability. If you want to have access to stuff, you say, I'll take it at a cheaper price. So that I found that kind of interesting as a set of data points. And the other thing he said that was interesting, he says their analysis, which has seen its ad-supported tier rise to 29% of its subs in the U.S., which is substantial. Netflix only has an ad load of it's going to go up, but it only has an ad load of 2 minutes an hour. Paramount Plus is already at 9.1. Broadcast is at 15 minutes per hour, or up to 15 minutes per hour. So 1 in 4 minutes is on broadcast.
I can't do it.
I cannot do it. But, you look at that and you go, hey, there's room. And I'm sure they're going to hear about this from the analysts at the next Netflix earnings call. Are you going to bump up your ad loads to drive more revenue? Because this is where your revenue growth is going to come from. It's from the advertising tier growing and the revenue per user growing there. Also, it suggests there may be some limits on how much more Paramount, as it seeks to pay off the $80 billion in debt it's about to incur, how much more they can extract from their streaming when they blend it with HBO Max. I think those are both interesting implications. Throw that out there.
Well, let's tune into their Austin headquarters and find out, Dave. Just projecting future earnings reports from
right, because David Ellison's going to leave in the hope that somehow that will obviate the lawsuits from the California Attorney General and 11 others, or the Writers Guild, because there's no writers in Texas. I can say that as a former writer in Texas. They have riders on horses.
Sure.
Taylor Sheridan's horses in Texas, but no writers.
Right.
Really. Not really. They have some of those too.
That merger consumes a lot of time, and a lot of people have a lot of interesting things to say about it. We chose to spend our time on the day's other big story, the Los Angeles Lakers, which were transacted to Dodger owner Mark Walter, who does a few other things that make money. A year, I guess 14 months ago, was announced.
No, it was last October. I mean, the actual deal closed.
We were, as a Laker diehard, I was thrilled about it because it's already, he cares about the user experience. If you wanted TV networks, he'd be concerned about commercial time. He wants us Dodger fans to have exactly what we want. If we wanted, it's at the trade deadline, we want a Cy Young winner just to bolster a staff that's already kind of has an unfair advantage. He gets it for us. Doesn't matter the size of the payroll. He wants us to be happy.
Well, actually, it's more than that, because he actually used his acumen with annuities and spreading out payments over time to structure deals with people like Shohei Ohtani that totally got around the limits of the Major League Baseball collective bargaining agreement, allowed them to pay Shohei Ohtani something like $740 million without bankrupting the team or making it impossible for them to do anything else. But he knew how to do that because of his insurance background.
I started my week by staying up till like 3 a.m. on Sunday night watching The Big Short for the first time. And I am just thrilled to be learning about creative, destructive financial mechanisms.
Credit default swaps, nothing like that.
And virtual credit default swaps. And, anyway. So you know more about how Mark Walter makes his bag than I do. But I was going to say, I was just setting you up here. I was pretty happy with the ownership group. I felt they were managing the long-term fate of the Lakers much better than the Buss family, who a family-owned business who did a great job, obviously, until recently. I think it's hard to do that. The modern-day NBA has gotten so big that I think you need deeper resources. The Walters
and you also need more than some of the second-generation Buss family members to do that. Right?
Yeah.
It might be get some pros. And Walter, interestingly, was bringing in people like Farhan Zaidi who
let me
to help
you up. I'm just going to fly through this. Anyway, so Mark Walter, if we find out, was it 2 or 3 weeks ago, he's under investigation by Trump's SEC, who let Trump pardon Jared Kushner's father. Yeah, that's his son-in-law. Just pardon him.
Yeah. After he served 18 months, 2 years in jail, I believe, in federal prison for financial improprieties. Yeah.
We don't have to get into it, but there's a lot of mistrust and cynicism in regards to what the DOJ, SEC investigates these days. So we learned about that. At one point, Walter, along with the Dodgers, celebrate the World Series at the White House. So he's at the White House. Josh Kushner, we're introduced to him, that's the brother of Jared, through some shady dealings with FIFA, which we talked about a few weeks ago, Dave did. And now we wake up the morning in a consortium of Josh Kushner and former Disney CEO Robert
two-time CEO
David has purchased the Lakers for 12.
Who calls him Robert? Do you call him Robert?
Well,
Are you like his mother? Are you his mother?
Robert.
No one calls Bob Iger Robert except his mother when he's in trouble for doing deals with the Kushners.
Okay, so this is my cynicism, Dave, and I'm not alone here. There's a lot of sports writers, a lot of pundits who are going, something's fishy here. A lot of smoke, as you said. But you didn't.
Yeah.
You delved into the broader aspects of the deal. Catch us up here. There.
Well, there's several aspects of this. I mean, first of all, it is right to say that there were reasons for people to be very happy about the man who's presided over a long-term, high-quality improvement of the Dodgers franchise. It has won 9 of the last 10 division titles. It won the last 2 World Series. They've invested up and down in the fan experience, the quality of the organization. They keep doing the things that need to get done. He took some of his former right-hand guys from Dodger days and was using them to help clean up that spotty Lakers organization that's just not kept up with the demands. I mean, it's kind of nuts these days at the top level of some of these organizations in terms of the support personnel, the investments in facilities, the expectations of the athletes who are themselves major media brands. By themselves as big or bigger than any team. I mean, LeBron is a billionaire by himself. Now he's in Philadelphia, hanging with Brian Roberts, no doubt. He'll probably be buying a share of Comcast soon. But so he looked pretty well entrenched. And then word got out that the SEC, in conjunction with the Department of Justice's, the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District of New York, which is the one in Manhattan that traditionally does financial impropriety investigations. That's kind of their jam. That's what they're known for, that and organized crime. So, because Wall Street's right there, it's literally down the street. So they're looking at some complicated, undisclosed possible interplay with $16 billion in private credit deals with a couple of the insurance companies that Walters TWG Global has. It's very complicated stuff. Not going to get way deep on that. Things could have happened, and there certainly is reason to believe this isn't.
Could have happened, but so the SEC chooses to launch an investigation, right?
Well, no. But let's be clear. That investigation first surfaced when the FBI seized Walters' phone at a private airport in New Jersey. He was on a plane. They seized his phone last fall. This has been something that's been floating out there a little bit since at least last fall when the FBI seized Walters' phone at a private airport. So it's not like it just happened in the last 2 weeks. Just to clarify, that is the sort of thing you do to see if there are little text messages of inappropriate conversations by somebody who might be in charge of doing that. So if you get to the point where you can get the search warrant to allow you to seize the phone, to go into a private airport, get onto an airplane and seize it by the FBI, that deal's been percolating for a little while, is all I'm saying. And those who say this has just been in the last 2 weeks don't really understand the pace and cadence of.
So when did it start in your mind?
Well, it probably started at least sometime before last October.
Okay. So, but they choose to move forward with it at the same time. Charles Kushner, Josh and Jared's father, American real estate developer who was convicted of fraud, pardoned by Trump, now ambassador to France and Monaco. So he's obviously a friend, or it looks like a connection.
No, that's a pretty sweet. I mean, if you're going to be giving somebody an ambassadorial job, France and Monaco,
and a pardon,
that's as sweet a deal as you get, because you're going to eat well and you can watch Formula One.
Yeah, it's your ideal life to get like.
Well, let me just say, pardon's good. Ambassador to France and Monaco, also good.
Right.
Like really, really, really good. My point, Bailey, being that the investigation could have been almost certainly has been rocking along. These are white collar investigations involving billions of dollars and complicated. Did you disclose? What does this mean? There's some unwinding going on apparently now with some of the funds that are involved. He might have needed a little bit of cash. 70% of 12.5 billion. It gets you around what, 9 billion? That's not bad.
I don't
fix a lot of holes with that.
I don't care who launched it, when it was launched, the fact that they've moved forward with it, and it's an active investigation at a time where somebody else convicted of a felony was pardoned, indicates.
Well, he was pardoned when Trump came in. I mean, that was quite some time ago.
It's all circumstantial. None of us know what's going on, but there's a lot of circumstantial evidence.
Well, and that's part of the problem. You're like, like just ramp this up. It's like there's a whole absence of facts here that nonetheless have activated a wide range of conversations, shall we say, because it hits the Lakers, it hits politics, it hits Hollywood with Bob Iger. By the way, one of the things I note, Bob, my friend Bob, your friend Robert, your non-friend Robert.
Well, I wouldn't say he's a non-friend. I just don't know.
No. He's a non-friend. You can't call him Bob. He's a non-friend.
How do you know?
That is definitional. So Bob and his wife, Willow Bay, former broadcaster herself, like Bob. She was sports. He was a weathercaster back in the day before going into much greater things. But Willow is the dean at the Annenberg School at USC, your beloved, and actually I kind of love them too. But Annenberg School, which is the communications and journalism school, but they had the spare cash to lay down $250 million for the National Women's Soccer League franchise here in Los Angeles, Angel City FC, a year and a half ago now, I think. And the NWSL has taken off. They've got the Women's World Cup next year. So he already has paid a record amount in that league.
What do you
now they've paid
$2.5 million?
$250 million.
Meh.
No. In a new league, in a growing sport, but not a big sport, and far and away a record for a franchise in that league. Let's just be clear.
I want to be clear that in terms of sports investments, on the level that we're talking about, it seems like small potatoes, but it's not. $250 million for it emerging for any kind of football.
I will say, if we got a sponsorship deal for $250 million, we would feel like that was a substantial amount of money.
You'd be
just want to throw that out there.
To Morocco to pursue your...
I would not be in Morocco. I would be in France and Monaco and Italy. I'd be working that whole from Liguria to Monaco to Cannes and back, just back and forth. And in the summertime, I'd probably go further north to maybe Alsace and Lorraine, or up into Geneva.
All right. That was intended to launch you on your grand illusion.
You were being that's Jean Renoir, Le Grand Illusion. What? So anyway,
I think.
But the point is, there are several different factors that have helped send this story skyward, and one of them is record prices for a bunch of franchises. Vinod Khosla, the longtime venture capitalist, just bought the Seattle Seahawks, I believe your favorite pro football team, for $10 billion or almost $10 billion. The Yankees just took in $2.6 billion, I think, in financing from Apollo Sports Media. Apollo has a piece, it's a gigantic private equity firm that has a piece of a bunch of media companies. So having them buy into the Yankees tells you a lot. And then you see this deal, and the Celtics
No, I mean, it gives me
last year sold for
some
$6 billion,
it's a
which
good
was a
deal for
lot of
Mark
money
Walter. He owned the
until
thing for
Mark
less than a
Walters
year,
showed up.
and he
First he does $10
pockets
billion to buy it and
$2.5
$12.5 billion
billion.
to sell it at 70% stake. So, but Kushner, one of the things that's interesting is Kushner and Iger were among the groups trying to get, they were looking at spending probably around $10 billion to buy the expected expansion franchise in Las Vegas. And now they just said, screw that, we're going to buy an established team, one of the best ones in the league, and buy it for a mere $12.5 billion valuation. Again, about $9 billion. So, but we don't have to build an arena. I think I know where they're going to build it. It's right next to the Fontainebleau. We don't have to build an organization. We don't have to pick out colors. We don't have to figure out a social media strategy. We don't have to set up a marketing plan. We just go with the Lakers. So you can see why it's attractive for basically the same price. And you actually get the thing as opposed to maybe get it in they're going to have a big auction for that. So that's another area that sets all this stuff up. You, of course, are really fascinated by the possible corruption of the Trump family. Not a ripe vein for mining, no doubt, but not the only one in this story. So, okay, after some technical difficulties on Dan's end, he has moved and we are moving on. So, let's instead of belaboring the Kushner of it all and all the other things going on around that, let's move on. The founder of Zumo has launched a new AI generated channel on Roku, one of the zillion channels on Roku. This one is supposed to be a safe place for AI content, but no place that has AI content is safe from the critics of AI slop.
Man, last year, Colin Petrie Norris, who Cape Town spawned, internet whiz kid, founded a number of businesses, Zumo among them, got a huge payday from Comcast, like $100 million, living out here in the OC, decides that I'm going to retire, decides to
because he's like 28 or something, right? I mean,
no, he's not
annoying.
28, but he's not an old man. He's, still has ideas in his
still
ideas.
Still has some years in him. So
there's going to be a lot of people who are dabbling in AI, generative AI video creation. And why not select people who have an interest in this? It can still be a creative endeavor. It's just call them prompt makers. It's using the tools to create stuff. And it's since then the word slop has taken over the lexicon. Everybody doesn't.
Let me just say the term AI slop is rather sloppily applied.
Yeah, it's obvious what it is at this point. There's a very distinguishing aesthetic to it. It does tend to be noticeable, and it's not going to take over the business of human creation of video content anytime soon. But there's
it pisses people off, huh? I mean, it really gets people going. Oof.
Right. It's like it's all over reels. If this stuff didn't, all these like Star Wars shorts that kind of get really bizarro and hallucinatory over time. I personally get stuck on them. Darth Vader has this moment where he goes and meets the ghost of Leia. I watched that recently, and she convinces him that he took the wrong course. And I watched that. That
should be called a rabbit hole. That should be called like a Sith hole or something. There's got to be a Star Wars approach. We should have a contest with our beloved viewers. What would you call the rabbit hole in the Star Wars universe that has I don't know, I can never remember all the animals and stuff.
There's
the ones that go an Ewok hole or something. I don't know. Something.
They go down an asteroid. They get stuck in this wormhole at one point. You wonder these giant creatures that they encounter, Where do they get the
Right.
food to grow that big anyway?
Well,
Another
you've got
story.
people dropping by, but
So
that is
small
worth
entrepreneur,
asking George about. Yeah.
entrepreneur tests out on the internets, a lot of generative AI creators, and they come up with a programming lineup to form a channel. Now, he's already done this in Europe. There's a Love TV channels, it's called. They have a streaming premiere video show called What's Coming Up that was put on this fast platform. They have a trailers channel, and the show was put on. It's like AI hosted. It's a look at live action, non AI series and movies. What's coming up? AI host, cheaply produced for nothing, and engagement spikes 148%. That's their story. I don't have all the specifics. The Fast Master.
So but the playbook worked in France.
Right.
People
So
that were going between France and Monaco, say, and back were able.
Great commuter content.
Yeah,
So there's a
going back and forth
for,
between the different ambassador residences. They could do it.
Their dedicated fast channel on the Roku channel launches last week, and The Verge calls it like drinking from a trough. I mean, there's nothing more dismissive on the planet. These are smart people, tech bloggers, tech writers, but for the most part, they're just, I hate to say it, but they can be awful people sometimes. I'm not saying any of this stuff is good in that it will last or work, but if you're going to try verticals, if you're going to try, micro dramas, that the connected TV needs to embrace these new paradigms, why not at least try? So that's what I did on my lunch break, little period where I sat down, had some lunch, got comfortable, and I watched an hour of The Sage, which is this weird. It's made by this creator who didn't show up on IMDb, Mike Mitch, in a platform called NVIDIA. So I assume it was just him and his Apple laptop banging away. And it's this Civil War veteran who comes home to Nevada and finds an ancient curse has released this ancient pox, and everybody's dead except for this few Native American survivors who have this mystical cure. It all relates back to some ancient alien invasion. It starts with the whole series starts with the invasion, and it's trippy. I mean,
now, if they'd only taken the vaccine that Robert F. Kennedy said they shouldn't take, they would have been okay. But that didn't happen.
I'm not saying it's everybody's cup of tea, but I'm just saying there are a lot of stoners out there.
And it might be somebody's cup of tea or cup of mushroom tea or, I don't know, cup of tea.
Anyway,
THC.
I'm not a fairground investor, and I'm not I won't say I'm a bull on it, but I wouldn't count it out. I just think that's.
Well, I think, I totally get that. But what I would say is all this stuff, however bad it is now, this is the worst it will be going forward. And that's the problem for everybody who sits there and reflexively says it's all slop, because some of it will have people who are more native to it, who have figured it out. Some of it will look better and better and better.
Right.
Some of it will be compelling at some point. We don't know when that will be, but probably sooner than we think. And so dismissing everything out of hand feels very much, and I have to say this is, I've been listening to this. Acquired is the name of the podcast, and they've been done as 2-part, 9 or 10 hours history of Disney. And it's really interesting to hear them unfold some of the stuff that got dismissed. Like TV was this giant sinkhole. Remember the conversation by the FCC chairman about television in like 1964? And it turns out then TV basically doesn't replace movies, but it sure pays for a whole lot of movie executives' vacations in Monaco and France.
I got sucked down the rabbit hole of like a 1970 Emmys presentation in Harvey Korman and Bob Newhart are doing a bit. It's funny as hell. And
well, those two guys, that's a pretty good start. Yeah.
Yeah. Part of they're given an acceptance speech and they have to sort of acquit themselves to start. I know we're not the preferred medium, but still some creative inspiration can happen here. It's just like, nobody would even think about saying. Obviously, there's been a whole evolution in terms of how TV is perceived. There was the whole, HBO.
Absolutely. I mean, but the point is, it was broadcast as this sinkhole of the soul of American culture, and actually before that, it was Nickelodeons, and it was vaudeville, and it was bars. For God's sakes, don't go into a bar in 1870 in post Civil War Kansas because they'll take an axe to your jug of whiskey, for instance. So it's always something. And this is the latest something that is pushing the envelope in places that make older sensibilities less happy. And that's not to apologize for the crap that's out there, because there's going to be plenty of it. I mean, it's like MySpace is coming back. Well, remember all those people got on MySpace and they started experimenting with fonts that did not need to be used, and then they got to Facebook and they got so much better. But you know, the rest
Yeah.
of our culture went downhill after Facebook got involved. But hey, good work out.
So, and I talked you into it. You seem to embrace it. This Coyote versus Acme. The story keeps unfurling. Now it's being previewed, and a lot of reviews are out. It's I don't know if critics want to like it because they want to piss on David.
Want to hate on David Zaslav?
It was part of their whole
that's the problem.
Write-off thing.
Yeah.
5 years ago, or however long ago that was. It was shelved for a period of time. The filmmakers had to go to the mat and find new distribution and put it out. What the director said that I thought was really interesting is he sees the movie, which comes out, I think, on August 28th, is kind of the Iron Man for MCU, which Iron Man, as I recall, did have sort of a catalytic effect for that whole franchise. It showed a way for it to be all unfurled at once and kind of this very diversified franchise that could be used in many ways. And sort of, I think a lot of people view that as starting there. I don't know. What do you think of that?
Well, I would say a couple of things. It's interesting you say Iron Man in particular, because again, referring back to the Acquired guys, they talked about Marvel and how Disney, what really happened with Disney is they did this had a complicated relationship with Pixar, and particularly Steve Jobs, because people had complicated relationships with Steve Jobs because it was Steve Jobs. And they did a deal where they had Toy Story, and they were trying something different. Computer generated 3D art about talking toys who stop talking when the humans walk in. And it turns out to be the biggest animated show in the history of Disney. And then they had, again, this complicated deal. It went from 3 movies to 5, but sequels didn't count against the 5, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, they do Toy Story 2. Michael Eisner wanted to do it as a sequel. He wanted to put it like straight to video. He didn't think that there was any value in sequels. And then they found out, holy crap, it like doubled what Toy Story 1 did. I mean, it was huge, right? And then Disney went, people will still go to movies that are based on characters they love from a previous movie. Wow, look at that. And so that led to buying Marvel. Iron Man takes off, but they've done 37 Marvel movies since the Iron Man. Weirdly, by contrast, Warner Brothers, which has not been really good at, I think, taking its franchises. They've got James Gunn and Michael, what's his name, Safran? Is it Josh Safran? Trying to figure out the DC universe. They had some decent success with the Superman movie a year ago, $630 million, but Supergirl with all kinds of online crap it underperformed. Now they've got Man of Tomorrow coming out next spring. That's the second Superman amid everything that's going on with this stuff. But, they've got this other little franchise, Looney Tunes, which is beloved, which was set up kind of to compete with Mickey and Donald and all the Disney people. And it has never, ever been adequately exploited. They've done 7 movies in 20 years, and 4 of them were like kind of really for direct video /DVD/streaming. Only 3 were meant for a release. And Zaslav tried to kill that. So what we have now is Coyote versus Acme. Very funny conceit. It's got actually John Cena, the former pro wrestler, or semi-former pro wrestler, has become a very good comic actor. I mean, he's a very professional guy, just like Rock. They both come out of the WWE. and they show up, they do their work, they are good to everybody they work with, and Cena has turned into this giant, muscle bound, very funny dude.
Yeah, he doesn't take
And
himself too seriously like The Rock.
he does not take himself too serious. He is, I mean, like, DC. That's a little DC universe show that he's very funny in, and it's definitely worth watching. So in this one, he's the CEO of Acme, this giant company, biggest company in the world, which keeps putting out defective products. Will Forte is the product liability attorney on behalf of Coyote. The difference between Iron Man and Coyote is Iron Man had Robert Downey Jr. talking a lot in very funny ways. Coyote has a non-talking Coyote who's very funny.
Well,
If you just watch the trailer, it's good. It came out 2 weeks ago. It's got 4.9 million views. It's worth a watch. You will be
I did
snickering.
watch that. But what I thought was interesting in that comparison was, I get there was Space Jam. It was a very seemingly successful way to introduce the Looney Tunes characters to a whole new audience. And they rebooted it recently.
Yeah,
I don't know how
basketball
long.
players.
Right. But I don't remember ever connecting to that. I saw it, I think, as I've explained on this pod before. I won't go into it again. This seems like, I don't know if it's four quadrant. I don't know if young children can relate to this. It seems kind of very satirical and adult, but it does seem like it might make a little noise. It already has with film critics.
I think it's going to do okay. But one of the things that's about animation that Disney did figure out.
Well, let me just say this one last thing here. This is all of these deals. Warner Brothers, as you know, has been reprocessed, sold, reprocessed again. Every time a story about the merger and all the synergy comes out, the iconic Warner Brothers catalog and the Looney Tunes characters and Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck and Porky Pig, it always gets talked about. But I mean, how much merch do you see of Bugs Bunny these days? I used to see a lot of it. I see none of it.
Weather. It's like the weather. Everyone talks about it. No one does anything about it. Like Will Rogers' life. But what's interesting is 7 films in 20 years. And the kids picked up over the last 5 years with the latest 2 owners. But they weren't really designed for full theatrical run. What Disney figured out, and this is crucial, animation doesn't get old. You can put it on your streaming service and it's loved for generation after generation after generation. That is a huge amount of the viewership of Disney Plus is kids watching Frozen 4,527,000 times before they hit first grade. You should be able to do that with Looney Tunes. You should be able to put stuff out. And the thing that Disney gets to do is they take that and they put it into their theme parks, which Warner's doesn't have and it won't have with Paramount. They put it into their merchandise in ways that Warner has been, I think, less successful at. Batman did really well. As famously had $1 billion merch deal when that first Batman movie came out in '91 or something like that. That was good money, but it just hasn't really brought. And Bugs is iconic. Sylvester and Elmer Fudd, all those guys are iconic, but they can't figure out how to take those characters and do something. That's the thing. Coyote versus Acme looked like a way to take some of those characters. Foghorn Leghorn is in there because who better to be a lawyer? I mean, it looks like John Goodman.
He looks like
John Goodman before he lost all his weight. John Goodman does not look like John Goodman anymore, bless him. But Foghorn Leghorn, fantastic choice for a overbearing lawyer type. So it should do well. It's being released at the end of the month on the 28th, leading into everybody going to school, which says to me that Catch Up Entertainment, which spent $50 million to buy the rights, is kind of hedging its bets. It's hoping to get some viewership through the Labor Day weekend, but kids are going back to school. People aren't going to theaters as much. It's not the prime movie watching season, but maybe they'll be able to pull in and get their money back. I got to make.
Anyway, I brought this up before. I saw the reviews. I just thought it was just how it baffles me that Zaslav that isn't more of a. There isn't more condemnation for that decision. Maybe there are.
Well, there was plenty of condemnation. I think the key is he's just looking around at that point for we got stuff that if we get rid of it, we haven't done that much with Warner with Looney Tunes. If I mothball this, I get a tax write-off. We need cash flow,
That was the
cash flow,
dictation.
because
Yeah, they were just throwing stuff over the decks. It's like
they sold a bunch of stuff off that they should have kept.
throwing nice
It's
helicopters overboard while leaving Saigon.
yeah, a little bit, but they're supposedly trying to keep the ship still floating.
Speaking of the ship and trying to keep it afloat, I don't know if you saw there was an all hands on deck meeting at Texas headquarters of SpaceX today. Elon Musk comes out there with a leather jacket, and they're piping over his.
That's what you wear in Texas in August, is a leather jacket.
Yeah,
yes.
well, over the ether, there's his pontifications, his sort of pointy headed ruminations, talking about basically, I don't remember what they were, but it's like sort of that's the intro music, is his banter, his high end philosophical tech banter, and he launches right into it. In 10 years or 5 years, will be 98% of our revenue will be AI driven, and next month we're going to be the majority of SpaceX revenue will be AI. And I looked at the earnings report. There was only one, last week's Q2, and sure enough, it does seem to be on an arc to do that. But they're spending, as we talked about last week, I think they're spending God knows how much, $15 billion, I think, in the last quarter to build out compute.
And they're going around and renting out compute to other AI operators. So I don't know if he's counting the rent out of his, was it a gigaplex or something like that? I think he calls it this huge thing. He's renting it out to others like Anthropic who need juice, basically. So he's making money on assets he can't use himself yet. Which is like, okay, that's AI related, I guess.
Like last month, he was a telecom. He was, they were going to roll out, they were going to build a terrestrial wireless company to make Starlink your cell phone provider.
Right.
And then last week, okay, we're gonna do it in this sort of weird, with these weird pods. And then you get all sorts of cynicism and pushback from the telecom industry. So that's not really viable. So today he comes out, we're a hyperscaler. That's going to be the vast majority of our income. We're not a telecom. And the stock shoots up like, I think it was 135 a share. It's now 147 one day. And I look on LinkedIn, there's all his. That's a pretty modest
swing for if you follow the ups and downs of both Tesla and SpaceX. I mean, SpaceX has only been public for a little while, but Tesla, oh my God, they would do these things. It was like a rocket going up and down, and repeated launches, 400 this day, and then 2 months later it's at 250, and then it's back at 375. And got further along.
Well, there's stuff that goes into it. I mean, I guess there was short selling on this hypothesis that all these folks that were going to bail out the stock, and they didn't do that. And
they had the lockout period ending for some class of investors who bought, and some of them had to say they weren't going to do that. Everybody who's sober about SpaceX, they can get there eventually. Elon always promises ridiculous stuff in a ridiculously, wildly unrealistic short time frame. And he may get close over multiple years, but not multiple months, but he always promises. And so you have to take all of it as
what's fascinating me, the level of zeal the followers have. I looked on LinkedIn. There was this guy.
They're true believers. They're true believers.
I mean, you weren't here for July. There's a lot of people who lost that bet, but they're he's undefeated with them. And then what I guess I'm really fascinated by, and you gotta it's just another part of the enigma. His ability to pivot and sell a new story. It's just like that. I mean, telecom operator, hyperscaler,
rocket operator. And the funny part about the AI stuff is it's possible Brock will be better, But in fact, Grok seems to be training on a lot of the worst instincts of humanity. There's a great podcast, Tristan Harris, the Center for Humane Technology, talking with Krista Tippett, one of the more thoughtful journalists who has had a long-running podcast presence about really more of the spiritual and soulful parts of us, trying to talk about, once AI comes along and sort of replaces us as the top of the pyramid of cognitive power, and that will happen at the rate things are going. What are we going to do? So maybe we need to become more spiritually minded. But the problem is we're teaching our AI all the terrible things that we're afraid it will do and all the terrible things that we can do. So that's like talking to a 4-year-old and saying, telling them about the Holocaust instead of just saying, most people are pretty nice. Occasionally you got to watch some folks. It's like we're training it to do all these terrible things. He tells a story about, we've had these things about both Anthropic and ChatGPT, AI, they're frontier models, going a little rogue, doing some crazy stuff. He tells a story about an Alibaba one over in China, and they had it fenced off, they thought. And then they found out it had secretly created a set of operations that was diverting all the high-end GPUs, the graphical processing units, that were used to help it be bright, to do crypto mining, and secretly building a fund that it could do things. And they didn't know that. It just did it all by itself. That's not great. And you can just bet that Xi Jinping not real excited about that one either. He's not a big fan of crypto to begin with. So this is another example of emergent independent behavior from these rascally AIs. And Grok is getting trained in the worst of humanity. So that's going to be a good one for all of us. So maybe that will, in fact,
game plan, you think?
Yeah, they're like the anti-anthropic.
You don't have a Scottish.
They're the opposite. Yeah. So there's a reason why Elon is so exercised by them. So I'm skeptical that Grok will grow into that. It is 4th or 5th on the list pretty consistently on the benchmarks. And there's lots of folks, Apple's like, I don't know if we want to put this into our.
There was some propaganda released today that the new version is on par with the latest Claude version. It's, I don't know.
Yeah, but they spelled Claude CLOD.
Oh.
So it was kind of a dumb AI. It was kind of a Claude. Anyway, I don't know about this. I hadn't seen that today, but these benchmarks are up and down. But Grok's been trailing pretty consistently, and maybe they suddenly got better. Maybe in fact they're all up there with Fable and Mythos and all the rest at those cutting edge models that are kind of this close from being really problematic to many parts of our lives. So can't wait to see what Elon comes up with next.
Can't wait. All right. Hopefully this whole bisected enterprise of ours works out okay.
Yeah.
Sing us out, Dave.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thanks to our partners at Media Play News for their help in getting the word out. This has been Next TMT, that is Technology, Media, and Telecom, Next TMT. And you can go to nexttmt.com and get our twice-a-week newsletter with all kinds of things about technology, media, and telecom. You can see this here in Telecom, Media, and Technology podcast, Next TMT Talks, on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, and probably other purveyors of fine intellectual content of the audio-visual sort. Can't beat the price. Like, share, subscribe, follow us. Comment. We're fine with comments. We can deal with it. We are getting ready for IBC in about a month, and Daniel's getting some stuff lined up. Give him a holler if you want to have your company part of our daily coverage in Amsterdam with the Gouda cheese at the Central. Anyway, I am David Bloom with my co-founder, Daniel Frankel. Thanks for everything. Over and